Okay, hi everybody. Hello and welcome to CSIC's Built Environment Innovation Podcast. My name is Stephen Good. I am an architect in profession, but currently Chief Executive at the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. We're Scotland's national innovation centre for construction and the built environment. Our role here at CSIC is to drive innovation across the sector and ultimately help make the places where we live, work and play better for everybody. With this podcast series, we really want to try and inspire you to get involved in changing the way we build and create the world around us for the better. The built environment touches all of us in all of our lives and all parts of society, so we hope to take you on a bit of a journey through some of the interesting, exciting and new ways of doing things in the construction space. You might work in the construction space, you might be an architect, you might be an engineer, a planner, a student studying in the built environment, you might be into technology, or you might be involved in the recruitment side of the industry. You might even not be involved in the construction space at all, but you simply care about the built environment around us, or you have an interest in innovation more generally and you want to see how other industries like the built environment are tackling some of the common challenges that we have, such as climate change and the digital revolution, culture change, that sort of stuff. So delighted to have you with us today. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or on Apple, and you can find out a bit more about what we're doing across all of our channels and on our website at cs-ic.org. So that's introductions out the way. First and foremost, we're recording this episode of the podcast during Scottish Apprenticeship Week, and it's something that we have worked with partners on quite regularly for a number of years, and it's really central to what we do at CSIC, is around promoting the new and exciting opportunities available to the future workforce within this really exciting dynamic sector. So today I'm delighted to have with me architect and founder of Makar Limited, Neil Sutherland, and two apprentices at work within Makar, Emily Blackman and Hannah Mackenzie. Neil, could I maybe ask you to give our audience a very quick run through of who Makar are and what you're all about?
Sure, thanks, Stephen. And yes, delighted to be involved today. So Makker's an established company. It's based on the edge of Inverness, set up 18 years ago by myself. And we're currently at around 50 people employed directly. We design, manufacture and assemble mainly houses, but we do other buildings as well. So we're working in a progressive offsite manner, in a very integrated manner, and we specialise in ecological specification and timber construction almost entirely. So it's part of the kind of revolution in changing the built environment to a much more responsible and environmentally important contribution, really, to the difficult challenges of our time. So we're doing some positive things in that space.
Fantastic, thanks, Neil. And I was trying to think back before we started this, when we first met, and it was probably maybe 2007, 2008, something like that, when we started to engage around the opportunities. In my previous life, we were working closely on some of the big off-site manufacturing kind of opportunities that presented themselves in Scotland, of which your organisation has been leading the charge for a number of years now, with a very specific approach to it. And that, as you touched on, you've built up a team of about 50 now. We've got Emily and Hannah with us today. Do you guys want to say a quick introduction just in terms of your background and what's brought you to the Makker family, and then we can pick up the conversation a little bit further going forward. Emily, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Emily. I'm 24 and I'm a second year apprentice with Makar.
Fantastic. Welcome, Emily. And Hannah?
So I started at Makker about 4 weeks ago. I am part of the production staff, so I'm just putting panels together, bits of, tons of different stages. We're doing wall panels, floor panels, roof panels, just a bit of everything. It's, and it's good. It's really different to what anything else I've done in the past. It's completely different, and it's just a better environment for me in particular. I like being able to work as a team as well as just potting on and doing your own thing.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, listen, welcome today, and thanks for getting involved in the podcast. Really keen to hear more around what you're doing and the work that Makker's moving forward. Obviously, we're doing this in a kind of unusual circumstances at the moment in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and we'll maybe touch on some of that in a little while. But really glad that you've got some time out your day today to talk to us about what's going on. So. It's Apprenticeship Week, as we touched on. Here in Scotland, we all know the traditional image of a construction trade apprenticeship, but the model is evolving. Businesses are developing new approaches. Emily, you're 2 years into your apprenticeship at the moment. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how that's been going? What attracted you into the sector initially, and then particularly what have you been doing with Makker over the last couple of years?
So COVID has meant that my apprenticeship is going quite slowly at the moment, mainly because of face-to-face teaching in colleges isn't currently going ahead. But because of the nature of my apprenticeship, I'm still in the workshop learning. So even though I can't get access to education at the moment, I'm constantly improving my skills every day working for Makar in the workshop. I wanted to pursue a career in joinery mainly because I was doing a drama and theatre degree and realised I enjoyed building the sets more than I did designing them, and thought it was probably time for a career change.
Absolutely. Fantastic. No, well, that's it's one of those things, isn't it? I suppose if you start off in one particular career like myself, you can often bounce about into different areas, but that's it's interesting having stepped into that space initially to find out it's the building part of it that you really enjoyed. So the construction industry presents huge number of opportunities then, I guess, around that. Superb. And Hannah, you touched on, you started earlier with Makker and then are back at Makker now as a qualified apprentice. What's your journey been like?
It's been different, that's for sure. I really enjoyed doing like woodwork and joinery in school, and that's what like prompted me to actually become a joiner. When I left school, I was straight into an apprenticeship, and I got paid off 2.5 months later, and then I had to just get a job because I couldn't find anything. But I ended up going back, and that's when I started my actual apprenticeship, and I started at Makar. And I was doing a shared apprenticeship for a while, so I was moving companies, getting experience of not just one company, I was getting the experience of lots of different companies. And then that kind of came to a halt about 2 years into my apprenticeship, and I stayed with the company that I was with at the time. They kept me on for the last 2 years of my apprenticeship. And then I got paid off after that, and then I had to take a year out because I couldn't find a job, and then I managed to get here, and I'm very thankful.
Back into the Makker family. So quite a twisting and bendy journey by the sounds of it, but you're in an organisation like Makker now. Both of you, do you want to give me a wee flavour of what a typical day looks like? So Emily, you start work on a Monday morning with Makker. What's your typical day look like?
Up at 4 for the workshop at 5:40. Unlock toolbox talk, which usually means we either discuss health and safety points that have been highlighted throughout the previous week. We also discuss deliveries, and then we get handed our jobs for the day. We each have our own deck in the workshop, so we have our own station to work from, which means we're super efficient, so we can get on with our panel no matter what other stages the other panels are at. So a typical day can literally be me building a wall, a floor panel, or a roof panel, depending on what stage of the house we're at.
Sure. Excellent. Fantastic. So a lot of variety in there on a day-to-day basis. And the toolbox talks, I presume, are a really integral part of making sure the team are well, prepared for what plans are happening that day.
Yeah. they can either be focused on like a health and safety feature, or they can be focused on a design feature that Makar is implementing. So it's just a really cool way to keep in touch with everyone, keep everyone on the same page, and move forward, basically.
Excellent, fantastic. And Hannah, similar question from your point of view: is your day similar? Have you got different roles now, responsibilities given your role in the organisation?
Well, I'm on the opposite shift to Emily, so I start at 2:30, and work till 11, 12. So we obviously leave handovers, so I carry on from what the morning team have started. It's pretty similar, we still do our toolbox talks when we arrive, and stuff like that. So it's still kind of new to me because everything's kind of changed since I was here last. So it's just trying to get used to everything again, but it's really good.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. So Neil, from your point of view, obviously you're running a successful business that's grown over the last 18 years, from a standing start to the well-respected organisation that it is now, doing some really, really forward-thinking and cutting-edge and unique projects. Where, from your point of view, do you see the apprenticeship model working within your business? How's that evolved and developed over the years, and what's that kind of doing in terms of value add for a Makker point of view?
Yeah, well, I should probably mention that this might come as a kind of a new thing to some folk here, even, but I was an apprentice myself. I just worked it out. It was 42 years ago. I left school at 16, and because I didn't show much academic promise, and I went into mechanical and production engineering as an apprentice in there, and I stayed with that for 4.5 years, and it's a different sector, but in many respects it's quite the same. I mean, it's timeless kind of mentored training, so you're working with experienced people, really, and learning about practical things and theoretical things together. So it's this combination of learning about life, but also learning about skills and knowledge at the same time. So there's something kind of universal about that, something quite old about it. And I think it would be quite nice to kind of touch on in this session just how that's changed in relation to what we need today, I suppose. But I mean, what's in mind at the moment is that as the company develops and grows, it's actually very difficult in the Highlands, possibly the same elsewhere, to actually find skilled people, frankly. It's actually quite a tricky thing to do. So one of the ways a company can do that is to take on that requirement. I mean, the apprentice idea is really a two-way commitment. So it's really, I think it's worth saying this actually, that for a company to take on a trainee, it actually is a commitment for sure. And you could actually suggest that it slows the skilled worker down a wee bit by teaching somebody. But at the same time, the young person, usually a young person, is also committing to that long-term thing. So it's about passing on knowledge. It's about strengthening organizations over time. I love the idea. In fact, Stephen, you and I are both architects. I would go as far as to say that it's not so much design that kind of makes me smile these days. It's actually seeing young people develop and grow and contribute. That's really a large part of what the Makker purpose is trying to do, frankly.
No, I mean, we've discussed this, outside of this podcast. We've discussed for a number of years and had great experiences of watching how other countries have developed that knowledge sharing and that older generation teaching the newer generation all the techniques and skills and information that you need to be able to do the kind of job you do. But you're right, you place that in the context of your business is in just outside Inverness, so you're in the Highlands. Is that challenge around making sure you can attract the right workforce in, and your model, I'm interested to understand, so over the years, how important have you, or what importance have you placed on developing your own team, I suppose, as opposed to trying to attract them in fully qualified, so to speak? Has that been a real part of the Makker kind of ethos?
Yeah, we're transitioning, as you know, Stephen, from the whole construction sector is changing quite rapidly, and so the traditional trades are evolving. I mean, I sometimes, when I give presentations to to audiences, I kind of wind them up by saying that I've come to announce the demise of the plumbing trade or whatever, and it's partly in jest and partly it's serious, because we are moving towards, and I realise it's quite a challenge for people to take this on, but we are moving towards multi-skilled trades, really, because the modern methods in construction and offsite approaches are really requiring more of individuals in many respects. So it's not just a joinery kind of attitude we need. We need to understand how services integrate into buildings, for example. We need to understand how, for example, when we're building a roof panel, very often we're actually forming the finished surface of that roof in the workshop, with the PV panels integrated, this type of thing. So yeah, it's. I mean, I would go as far as to say it's more interesting now. It's more exciting. There's more to it, really. And yeah, I mean, isn't it wonderful? Buildings, particularly houses, that they're starting to really get into that space now where they're becoming less of the problem in relation to, say, greenhouse gas emissions and part of the solution. So we're actually producing energy positive houses that produce more energy than they consume. These are exciting times for construction, no doubt.
And on that point, so if I can bring Emily and Hannah back in, so you guys are working for, as Neil's just described there, an organisation that's going through quite a lot of transition. You probably had ideas about what your apprenticeship might have looked like. Maybe not, but you may have had some preconceptions. How do you think working for an organisation like Makker, with the range of different skills, Neil touched on multi-skilling requirements, how's that impacted on your experience? Is it what you thought it was going to be? And just, the range of different skills you're getting taught, give the audience a wee flavour of some of those different skills you're maybe picking up just now. Emily, do you want to go first?
Well, because Makar builds primarily in an offsite workshop, I'm not just responsible for framing panels and throwing OSB onto things. We go right from the internal kind of side of the wall, from the OSB to the frame, to actually putting the cladding on inside the workshop, which means that we can basically control a lot more factors to do with the cladding. It comes out neater, and in general it's safer because we're creating it flat. I wouldn't have gotten anywhere near as confident with the cladding if I was having to work up a ladder. And because of that, it allows me to focus on my hand skills rather than my footwork, essentially. I can focus on the job in hand and complete it to a nice finish rather than having to work off a scaffold or a ladder.
Excellent. And you touched on there, obviously, this is a different approach, and maybe not all of our listeners know much about offsite manufacturing or design for manufacturing assembly sort of approaches. Neil, I'll maybe come back to you on that in a wee second, just to help share with our listeners a better understanding of Makker's philosophy around that approach. But Hannah, a question to you around your kind of expectations, I guess, when you started originally. You've been through quite a journey, and now back with Makker again. Do you have a role that's entirely factory based, or do you also get out involved in the assembly part of things on site?
Well, because I've only started 4 weeks ago, I'm obviously still in the workshop just now, but you never know, there might be in the future I'll be on the assemblies.
I know Neil certainly likes to have everybody with a really rounded knowledge, I suppose, around all aspects of the business. So I'd imagine that's, not putting words in your mouth, Neil, but I imagine that's probably on the cards for the future once you've got your feet back under the desk, Hannah. Neil, on the the offsite manufacturing side of things, then, you've developed a very particular approach within the Scottish context that uses our natural resources well, looks very much at that healthy, sustainable approach to delivery. For readers that are maybe less familiar with offsite manufacturing and that kind of technique, could you give me a flavour from your perspective of why you approach that, and maybe from your clients, your customers' perspective, why they're really attracted to that proposition?
Yeah, good question, Stephen. So, I mean, clearly from what I've already mentioned, I combine a sort of engineering approach with a kind of more traditional design approach, I suppose, through studying architecture when I got into my 20s. So in many respects, it's really combining those two things. So I'll just wind you up a little bit, Stephen, by suggesting that architects quite like drawing things very often, but engineers quite like getting stuff made. It's not too much a challenge, but in some respects, hopefully. So what it is, design is about the intention. What is it we're trying to do? And very often, as design is developed and handed on, as it's kind of the process moves forward, some of that design intention is weakened. It's kind of reduced. It's diluted, if you like. So really what Makkar's trying to do is not do that. It's to try and keep that kind of initial intention whole as much as possible. So the idea is that we layer the different kind of development processes. So design hands on to technical production information is produced. It's then made and then assembled. And all these parts of the process are connected. We're on the same site, apart from the assembly stage. Obviously, that's somewhere else. But so we work in teams. So we've got designers and technical people and the workshop operatives working together effectively, so we can actually problem solve. And the idea is that those that are actually making things are the best people to actually refine the process of how to improve that making. And also they can then influence how things are designed as well. So it's really that respectful relationship between all these different elements. So it's we are looking at organizational change here. It's about a different business model, if you like. And it's one where the customer, who's the person that pays us, gets a wonderful house that literally will change their life. Because they'll have an inspiring space, and it's going to be healthy. It's got a story to it, so they can trace it back, and so where the timber comes from, and the whole team approach really. So we're trying to we're trying to work in a different manner, but one that creates value, creates real tangible value to people. And that includes the people, everyone that's involved in the process, including the customer, really. So that's quite a lot to take on, I suppose. But that's what we're trying to do. And finally, I would just say, in answer to your question, is that we're in demand. We very much we're growing as an organisation, and we have intentions to develop further and grow the organisation, keep growing it, because we're enjoying what we're doing, and our customers seem to be as well.
Superb. And I know you've been on a journey for the last 18 years, I guess, as Makkar's evolved and refined. And I know a big part in the earlier days was about that realisation that moving from the architectural practice side of things into the delivery side as well, to make sure you could kind of really try and manage that careful relationship between the designed intent and then the actual delivered product does meet, customers' needs and expectations. That was a really important part for you. In terms of where we are now as an industry, it feels like there's another big change coming potentially in terms of more of the solutions that we're looking to to deliver, being of the right quality, consistently, to very demanding standards that we're going to be, driven to if people aren't, volunteering to head in that direction now. They'll be driven by regulations around climate change and the drive towards zero carbon. The apprenticeship approach, skills more generally, is going to be one of the real challenges if we have to build everything at scale to these very high standards in the future. You've got a good track record there. We see, as an innovation centre, a lot of opportunities for those that have been doing it to help educate and upskill and share knowledge with those that are perhaps starting this journey of building to really, really exacting standards. That strikes me as being a great opportunity to also showcase how the apprentices in your team are learning and developing those wider skills. So Emily and Hannah, again, a quick question around the advice you would maybe give. The industry is evolving. Makar have clearly been on a really interesting journey for a number of years. You guys are now involved at early stage-ish of your careers around how to do this. What advice would you give to others that are perhaps considering a role in the future within the construction space, within an organisation like Makar or others that are going to develop around that? What kind of advice would you give them around the future opportunities this industry might offer? Hannah, do you want to maybe go first on that one?
Well, I'd say go for it, like, especially for a girl like me and Emily. A lot of females our age are like, oh, but it's not for us, we've always wanted to do it, but we feel like we can't. Well, no one's stopping them. If you want to do it, go for it. And there's always going to be some people that are going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. But that shouldn't stop you for doing something that you really, really want to do. Like me and Emily, we really wanted to do it, so we just went for it. There's obviously some people that, are going to say differently, but I say go for it. Absolutely.
And I think that's an interesting point. We haven't touched on it, but obviously you're both females, apprentices, working for Makker. I know that's not unique within that organisation, but across the sector, the representation of a whole variety of different characteristics, but particularly gender-based, is something that the industry has to try and change. What do you think, from your own points of view, do you think the industry could be doing better to attract more women into roles? From my experience, you guys are just as waterproof as the men that work in this industry in terms of, the environment we work in. What is it that stops more women getting involved? Is it the historical, cultural baggage of the industry, or are there particular things from your perspective you could see us doing differently? Yeah, it's the culture and the attitude. And what could we be doing better, Emily? I'm conscious a lot of our listeners will be thinking perhaps about it. A lot of them hopefully will be female. Yeah.
Clearly, not all attitudes are the same. Not going to tar everyone with the same brush. But it took me 9 months to find an apprenticeship. And I kept getting interviewed. They'd see my CV, and as soon as they saw me in person, I somehow didn't fit in with the dynamic of their team, which we all knew was a polite way of saying, you're a girl, the others are guys, they don't want to work with you. But I found that coming to Makar, I got none of that. Because they'd had previous dealings with female apprentices and female joiners, and I almost felt that they were more open and more set up to actually accommodate me. I think a lot of people in my position might not have been taking up apprenticeship opportunities, mainly because of the manual handling side of things. I'm in a workshop environment. I can rely on the crane and other people around me to help me with lifts, so I don't have to let the manual handling side of things get in the way of my skill set, essentially. I am not as much as I can lift, I have other skills available to me. I think it's that general labour side of things that people kind of stay away from females in this kind of construction sector.
So the approach that Makker takes, where you've got elements of automation and you've got equipment and technology that's there to support all the operatives in the team, whether they're male or female, actually just helps kind of harmonise, I suppose, the approach a little bit. It just means the technology is there to support everybody. You can apply your skills, your talents in the best areas around the piece of work you're doing, and the heavy lifting, for want of a better description, can get done by some of the technology that this approach around offsite manufacturing kind of lends itself to. Is that the best way of kind of summarising it, maybe?
And like Neil said, we're all a team. You know, if we're stuck with something, there's always someone that you can just go to and, you know, oh, can you give me a hand lifting this? Yeah, no problem. You know, we're all a team. If we're struggling with something, someone else is there to help.
Yeah, absolutely. No, listen, good. Appreciate that. Thank you, guys. I'm conscious of time. I'm going to throw a question over to you guys first. Neil, maybe first. In the limited time we've got left, around the theme of, you know, the transition, the evolution, the culture change that's going on within the industry, is there anything particular you want to mention to our members? And then I'll bring Hannah and Emily back in on particular aspects around what their kind of hopes and aspirations for the future are. But Neil, anything more generally we've not touched on yet that you think would be worth making sure our audience picks up from your organisation?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I think it's worth saying that the image generally of construction needs to shift. And, you know, we're in the business of helping that shift. I mean, in sort of perfectly normal grown-up countries like Sweden or Canada, it's quite normal to have this gender balance within the sector. We don't have that across Scotland at the moment, but it's changing. We have to be hopeful about that. I would also go as far as to say that there's some real tangible benefits in having a mixture, a balance, you know, a better balance within a workshop context, for example. There's absolutely nothing that Emily or Hannah can't do that anyone else can do in that space. So it's really important. It actually sharpens people up. The behaviours are more positive. I mean, it's a very, very positive. Imagine the only aspect of life is where you work, there's no women working there. It's just crazy. So yeah, we absolutely value everyone in the organisation, and it's absolutely fantastic to have bright young people involved that care about what they're doing, and they're involved for the right reasons. So I have 3 sons, none of which I expected to join Makker. I didn't give them any realisation that was my expectation. One of them was an apprentice with us. He's now 28, and he makes the same wage as I do, actually. It's almost embarrassing. So that's the other thing, skills and creating value, you end up with well paid roles as well. It's worth saying that. And our middle son went off to university. He's now back, and he works with his mum here growing vegetables because that's what he likes to do. And then our youngest son, Aidan, he's in his early 20s. It looks like he's gone down the apprentice route with us as well. And it's because of the support he gets, the culture here, which is, it gives people the chance to develop and grow and evolve. And that's all we want people to do, is to give them opportunities to develop and grow themselves, but also create some value in a business sense that relates to real tangible things. That young people need to, we could call it a crusade, guys, you know, the environmental response to, you know, climate change and other things. There needs to be ways in which young people can contribute in a direct and healthy manner. And I hope that this organisation can continue to do that, give these opportunities.
Superb, thank you, Neil. I know certainly from my experience engaging with you guys over a number of years, that culture, that kind of passion that everybody has for producing, really clever, smart, intelligent, healthy, safe buildings for people to enjoy is obvious, I think, right across the whole team. And Emily and Hannah's experience in terms of adding to that, I'm sure that will be a perspective that they'll take and add to and build on, I think. And I guess the really interesting thing as an innovation centre that's working across the whole industry is how, when we find great examples of that culture and that spirit and that passion, how do we try and share that with others so that they can embrace those same sort of approaches? Because ultimately what we want, I guess, as an industry full of organisations that have a similar approach in terms of culture to what you guys have developed, and really foster, I suppose, the opportunities for the next generation of leaders to come in and develop their skills and take the industry forward again. Emily, we are working in the middle of a global pandemic at the moment, which I'm sure hasn't came without its challenges. How's the coronavirus situation impacted you in terms of your experience at Makker, your work, your involvement within the industry? What have been the challenges that that's brought?
I think it's just really highlighted how much of a family Makar is. It sounds really corny saying that a company is a family, but COVID is hit hard up here, and I mean, I've lost my flat with my partner. He lost his job, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, and I don't think I'd have been able to keep going with my apprenticeship if I hadn't received so much support from the rest of the people at Makker.
Super. No, I mean, that's a big testament to the, as you say, that family approach, that when things are tough, everybody rallies round and helps out. No, that's great to hear. And Hannah, from your point of view, your experience?
I'm just kind of glad that, you've got somewhere that, I know you can't do anything else, you can't see that your friends or anything, but like Emily said, it is a family, so you're kind of glad to come to work because you're getting to see other people's faces, so you're not, stuck at home or anything else. You're actually getting out there and being able to, interact with people as well as obviously work.
Absolutely. And I think it's testament to the industry that, one of the first, sectors out the blocks last March that developed a kind of restart plan, put safe operating guidance in place for the industry to then get back up and operate safely. And, I know you guys are still delivering, a lot of volume. You're still delivering a lot of ambitious projects, but that's been done in an environment now where, have you found it easier to manage some of the COVID related health and safety challenges in the factory, Neil? Has that been something that you think actually you've been well set up to do because of your structures in your organisation anyway?
Yeah, that's right. And we, as you say, the sector, that's one thing that's really made significant progress on this last couple of decades, is that whole health and safety piece. So yeah, we're used to dealing with that, and the statistics show that the workplace related infection rates are extremely low because of the measures we've been able to bring in. So yeah, we're all very, very health and safety conscious, to be honest. And so I've absolutely no doubt that we have been able to operate with the safety of everyone in mind at the centre of what we do. And yeah, it's testament to the progress and the progressive kind of attitude we have, I guess, as a sector generally. And if we could take some of that progress and move it on now, as you described, Stephen, in other areas of innovation, we're going to see the whole construction space become the kind of place that young people want to come and work in. That's what we need to do now. And we need to get that story out to teachers, to parents, to young people themselves, that this is a really exciting kind of meaningful kind of area that they can get involved in. And the more companies that pick up on this, the better. And we can change that image for good and deliver some fantastic places for people to live and work in. Yeah.
Superb. Thank you. And one final question, Neil, just a simple one, hopefully. I'm not sure how simple the answer will be. What, if you were able to, around the apprenticeship model, what one thing do you think would unlock, most value, I guess, for this sector if we were able to, change things or approach things slightly differently? What would you say would be the top kind of priority?
Yeah, I mean, I think that change in kind of profile, I think it's going to take a wee bit of time to do that. And that's obviously why we're on this call today, to start that, to keep moving that kind of that thing along. What's quite hopeful at the moment, we're in direct discussion with Inverness College UHI, University of the Highlands and Islands, about pathways. So combining the sort of formal skills training that the college can provide, but also grafting it onto what we provide here. So, there's some really hopeful discussions around coming and doing kind of skills tests within the organization here, for example. So it's that idea that we can actually start working together on that sort of longer program. Because let's face it, beyond an apprenticeship, as I've kind of shown myself, there's no stopping the education there and the learning. You can go on and train beyond that. And we need to connect our colleges and universities to allow that to happen. So Emily and Hannah know that I get a bit uncomfortable being called the boss, because we're all important here. And, I just get to kind of steer things a wee bit from my perspective. But it's organization belongs to everyone that's here. And we're combining that idea of self-management with a kind of wholeness and awareness, so everyone brings themselves to work. They don't bring apart themselves, they bring themselves to work. And we've also part of that, what you might call the evolutionary kind of purpose. So we're here for a reason. We're making a direct contribution, and it's something that's really worth doing. So it's about people putting their lives into things that are meaningful. That's quite a big thing. And with that, who wouldn't want to be involved in construction? Who wouldn't want to be involved in the built environment, which is so powerful in relation to what it can deliver these days? So let's keep working together, Stephen, and let's change that. Change attitudes, yeah.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, on that, if I can sum that up in one word, it's about more collaboration. I suppose it's about more partnership work, and it's about bringing the experience on the coalface together with the experience in the classroom as close together as is humanly possible. And that's certainly something that you guys have been doing a lot of. It's great to see it, and we're certainly keen to help support more of. Listen, on that note, thank you very much. We've came up against the end of our time. Really appreciate all your time, Hannah, Emily, Neil. I know you're busy. You'll be getting back to the workshop floor in a moment, but really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us today. I hope our audience has had a good insight into some of the stuff that you guys are doing at Makar, the experience, Emily, Hannah, that you've had in terms of joining the organisation and what you've learned and what you'll continue to learn and influence and grow with the business, I guess, over the coming years. It's been great to have you on board. Thank you very much indeed for your time and for a really insightful discussion on the modern apprenticeship process, the opportunities for young people entering the construction industry. It's brilliant to see the model that Makker have developed over the years and how that's progressed. Really inspiring, I think, to see the community and family sort of spirit that's built up around the organisation, and hopefully a good model for others in the industry perhaps to learn from and adopt going forward. So really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much for that. That's it for today, folks. I hope you've enjoyed hearing from Emily, Hannah and Neil on their journey. I hope you get involved in Apprenticeship Week activity that's going on all week. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to hear lots more about all the things we're doing across the built environment space here in Scotland and beyond. Visit our website at cs-ic.org and get involved in the conversation across all our social media platforms. The link is in the bio. Appreciate you joining us again. Thank you very much for your time. Take care. See you again next time. Thanks.